we will go ahead and get this meeting started today. And since we've lost about 15 minutes, we'll just jump right into it. Minutes and financials, Sean?
Yeah, we'll need to discuss minutes later. We can kind of go over that. Bryony, I'll yield that to you for that discussion. Financials, no changes, still same in 402 and 403 accounts, so no changes from last month.
All right. Nick, I know you just joined us, but if you can start to give us an update on public art.
Yes, apologies for being late. Got stuck in work. Let's see, where are we at? I guess with the master plan, Sam has done a great job getting more text in for some of our case studies. Thank you for doing that, Sam. And Bryony, you have made some good progress getting into the toolkit, the public art toolkit. So since we did not have a meeting last week, I think what we should probably do is, and actually I'd love feedback here from the folks who are in the public art committee. I think we could schedule an ad hoc meeting here within the next week, or week and a half to go through this and catch up on some stuff. Or if folks prefer, I could set aside some time and do a really thorough top to bottom read through and do sort of individual call outs for folks where either sections that were assigned to people need a bit more work and need to be fleshed out, or I can take a stab for the sections that are more complete at sort of streamlining the language and giving the entire document a more consistent voice, since we had so many contributors. I guess, do people have a preference between setting up an ad hoc meeting, going through it sort of visually and verbally, or me just doing a run through and kind of playing editor and taskmaster on it?
I think we need both. I think we need you to go through it be as thorough as you can, but you will have questions, you will have unresolved items. And at that point, we have the meeting and we try to resolve those outstanding items and, pull some ears and get everything done as soon as possible, because we've started to drag this a little long.
Yeah, that's fair. That works for me if it works for other folks. What I will do is I'll probably need some time this weekend to be able to do the full deep dive. What I will endeavor to do is to have an email out to the committee with my assessment of where things are at by Monday. And then hopefully that puts people in a position next week to ask some questions, and we can sort of hopefully make the call within the first 24 or 48 hours after my email as to whether we want to get a meeting on the books for later in the week, or if we can sort some stuff via email or one-to-ones. Does that seem like a reasonable plan with where we're at?
I would suggest booking a meeting for noon next Friday, and it's easier to cancel than it is to add 2 days prior, at least for me, but I'll let others chime in.
That's fair. I am available at that time. I don't know about others.
I would love any day other than, or wait, which Friday? So not this Friday, but next Friday.
Yeah, the 21st.
Okay, yeah, that's great.
Bryony, does that impact you all for grant reviewers or anything like that? I don't want to overextend you all by any means, but I'm happy to go ahead and get that on the calendar right now and just get it booked for everybody.
There's no conflicts for grants.
I know that I probably won't be able to make it because I'm going to be out of state and I don't know what resources I'm going to have there, but I think you should go ahead with it.
Cool. I think that's fine. I always welcome your contributions, Karen, but I think that for the way we had sections divvied up, I probably have the least questions, for the sections that you were on. But I'll include you on my email notes and things like that so that the rest of it's transparent.
And Karen, I'm happy, Nick, to take this off your plate. Karen, I'm happy to schedule a call earlier in the week for your feedback if you would prefer to do that rather than shoot an email. Karen, just let me know what's your preference and I'm happy to take notes for you and do it that way, and be more efficient of your time.
All right, so that's it for the master plan at this point, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you want to speak to the ongoing projects?
Yeah, I guess since our last meeting, I did attend the ribbon cutting for the Trades District garage, where actually, considering it was a groundbreaking for a garage on a cold, rainy day, there were a decent amount of people there. I know there are a lot of departments involved in that, so maybe that's not a total surprise, but a good number of folks that were actually there, which gave Esteban a bit of a captive audience. I think for all of the events that he'd done, I think he got the most public participation at that one. That's what he said. So he was feeling really good about it. And then I know that we're right in the zone now where he was hoping to have all of the public contributions for the tiles basically in. I'm curious, Sean, have you heard any more from him? I know when we talked there in person, he was still, I can't remember how many short of the total he was aiming for, but do you know if he got there?
No, he hasn't yet. And I emailed him to get an update on where he was, and I haven't heard back yet. I know he's got a pretty big commission right now with the Tippecanoe Arts Federation's opening or whatever, so he's been pretty locked up with that. But he said he walked away with a fair amount, and people have been submitting more and more online, which has been helpful. And yes, Bryony, I got your submission and sent it to him. He was very excited about that. So I had
several people say that they could not upload it, and when I tried, I couldn't upload it either.
All right, I'll report that back to him. But if there is any issue of people uploading, just send it to me or directly to Esteban, and we'll get it up there so he has it. But I'm fairly certain he's in the home stretch now, so we can. I'll try to check back in, and maybe by the public art meeting next week, have an update for you all.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I think, Sean, if you can figure out where his tally's at, what I had told him was I know he's sort of mentally prepared to just do a bunch of tiles himself, but I also want to be cognizant of how much work that's going to be for him. And so, if it's something where, I don't know, he needs like 40 more, and it's something where, we can kind of put that to the commission, and we can do one last sort of final messaging push to our networks, and see if we can wrangle a few up, or perhaps commissioners and their families want to do a couple on their own, like that sort of thing. We might be able to get that to that finish line without Esteban having to power through a bunch all by himself.
Yeah, and I think the goal is to get the community involved more so than having Esteban do 50 of them. So we can definitely push.
I can, especially if you all send me some type of images or something I can put on social media, I can put something up there. I've got a lot more time to devote to social media at this point. And I feel like that would be like a cool thing. Like it would look good, and it would pull people into a public arts project. I feel like it would be really good. Can you put that link in the chat, Sean, if that's you?
Happy to. Yeah. So I'm just curious. I'm going to see if these are the backlog that we have so far, but I'm trying to think if there's been any more additions since the last time I checked, which was like 2 weeks ago, but it doesn't look that way. So I'll check back in with Esteban and see where we're at. But yeah, I'll drop this in the chat for everybody. But these are the submissions that this subset right here is from the Banneker Advisory Council when he partnered with them. So I mean, there's some pretty nice submissions so far. So I know there's a lot more because obviously the Trades Garage ones haven't been uploaded here. So
yeah, I don't see any from the Trades Garage. I kind of scanned through them before he left, and yeah, so okay, that would be super helpful, Essence. That's great. And I guess beyond the link, if there's any other context or info that you need, feel free to shoot Sean and I an email, and we can help fill in the gaps there.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, I mean, in general, I think Esteban was feeling really good about the process, and his colleague and former student who's actually doing the 3D render transfers from these 2D submissions was there as well, and so yeah, it felt really good. There's a good reaction from city folks. The mayor came over, checked things out. Don Gibson came over, checked things out, told us we should put the designs on a shirt and sell them. But yeah, that event felt very good. And then otherwise, I think folks have seen pictures of the installation at Switchyard. I know I at least have had a chance to swing by and seen him in person. I think Sam, you sent some evidence of doing the same. Looks very good. Sean, is there a timeline for the Dipper and North Star part of the installation?
Just so everybody knows, construction delays galore right now, right, with material costs. So there's a mechanical component that they're waiting on that has been pushed back. And this is across the board right now with, I think, COVID related stuff, materials and shipping. I don't know. I just heard today that somebody tried to buy a 2x4 and it cost almost $10 for a 2x4 when normally they're about $250. So, and I'm not sure what I haven't got a most recent update of where we are, but I know they are ready to roll. They just are missing one key mechanical component to be shipped for the whole lighting system. So I'll try to, like I said, I have an email out to Tom and Rachel to get an update on that. But on that front, Liz Mitchell and her crew are very excited about partnering on some kind of dedication event. They have pitched Juneteenth as a potential dedication date that I wanted to discuss with you all at some point. Once I know more from Tom, if that's doable at this point, that's kind of my turning point. There's already a scheduled event for Juneteenth at the park that the CFRD and IU will be pursuing, but it's kind of in a different time frame. It's more during the day. This could be an evening event. So I just want to plant that seed for you all at this meeting that think about it, sleep on it. I think it could align well with the dedication. It'd just be kind of a different approach for us, and that's what we wanted to do with these dedications. So there's still a few outlying components, but I'm hoping to lock that in at our public art planning committee meeting in the coming weeks, in May at least. So, or in June, early June. So I will be in touch about that as I know more from you all.
That's the 19th. That's the Saturday, the 19th, right?
Yeah, it'd be June 19th. It'd be a Saturday. Liz's crew would be more on the evening side is their preference, and they would use the North Star as the backdrop for their work. And for those of you that aren't familiar, Liz Mitchell is a playwright, has done a lot of work on African-American history and especially the Underground Railroad, and ties into that. Liz has also been appointed to the renaming committee for Jordan Avenue for both IU and the city. So she's a very important voice and has been doing a lot of productions around the Black experience in Indiana. And I'm really thrilled to be that her and her team are excited about working with us in this kind of capacity. So that's the other update for Switchyard.
What organization is CFRD?
That's a Community Family Resources Department.
Okay. And what is Liz's last name again?
Mitchell.
Okay.
And I'm blanking. I don't know if it's a collective or if it's Liz Mitchell as a playwright. I'll have to look into that. It's 3 individuals that work with her on her productions. I'm trying to think. I saw one at the Rose Fire Bay about 2 years ago, initially.
Is there something that we need to do for the event or coordinate, take charge of?
Once we get the date locked in, and frankly, once the timeline's set, like I said, I was kind of under the impression that the work would be done by now, but with this whole construction delay, I'm kind of, and the weather also hasn't been cooperative. It's not solely on, the material purchase. So, thank you, Nick, for sending that. That's helpful. So I've been kind of waiting to get an update, and then once we have that locked in, if the 2 things are in place, then we can kind of work from there. So I'll hopefully have an answer next week. Fingers crossed.
Sounds good. Any other updates across other projects?
They're moving forward. All of them are slow and steady winning the race. 4th Street, as you all have seen, the precast is up. So the art component is pretty critical to how that building will look. So just encourage people to be patient about that. And yeah, we're rocking and rolling on all fronts with the 1%. So.
Nick, do you have any other updates for the committee?
Not at this time.
All right,
Anyone else question?
Essence, will you give us an update on grants?
Absolutely. So I'll go in the order of what's on the agenda here. So we closed the spring grant cycle on April 30th, and we have 33 applications. Some of them are from new applicants. Some of them are, as we have been calling them, repeat offenders. And we are currently reviewing them. The folks from BAC who are reviewing, who are serving on the grants panel, me, of course, Elizabeth, let's see, Bryony and Elliot. And then we also have some volunteers who are in arts programs, I believe, and arts administration, arts history programs at IU, Sarah Martin, and Bryony, can you help me with Rachel's last name?
Kabukala.
Thank you. So we are all reviewing the applications right now, and we'll take some time on May 22nd to meet and actually have that discussion. We're getting back to the traditional grants panel that we've had after taking a break with the recovery grants programs, where the setup was just a little bit different. But we're going back to the grants panel. The only difference will be that it's on Zoom. So, and we will have recommendations to present to the general BAC on June the 9th. Oh, and one other thing that I wanted to mention that I glazed over is that some of the applicants we believe will be better suited for the emerging artist grants that we're developing right now and hoping to launch in the fall. But we are going to continue to review those applications with just as much dedication and any notes that we can give to those applicants so that their emerging artist grants are just as strong in the fall. Did I skip over anything?
I think you covered everything, but if anybody has any questions.
There won't be a meeting on Friday, May the 21st, if I didn't mention that yet. Usually we have that Friday blocked off so that we can check in and everything, but we're meeting the next day. We're going to use that Friday block of time to finish reviewing any applications that are still in our queue and spend our block of time on Saturday with each other in discussion.
Sounds good. Sean, do you have anything else to add?
No, not really. We're really excited. Essence is taking the lead as grants chair. It's a good pool of applicants, even though there are I didn't realize we were saying a repeat offender, but it's a fairly good spread. Some interesting new folks at the table. The legacy organizations and the typical kind of arts groups brought themselves to the table in a lot of ways. So it's going to be a tough scoring system, but I think we'll walk away with hopefully a very good spread to present to you all at the June 9th meeting for discussion. And we might be able to even do some preliminary, like send it out as an email and so that it's not just fresh at this meeting reviewing, just so you all know too, since we'll hopefully have something by maybe the end of May. So that way we can all kind of, it won't be freshly presented to you in June is what I'm saying, so.
All right. Moving on to the strategic plan implementation. We'll keep this one really short today. I think there's very little in terms of updates. First question for you, Sean. Have you had a chance to review the website information with the city team?
I have not. It is on my to-do list though, so I apologize.
No worries. In terms of other projects that different commissioners are leading, does anybody want to provide an update? All right. So we'll look for some updates for the next meeting. For now, we'll continue to work on the community hour, the social media, all of those things bit by bit. If anybody needs any assistance or has any questions, you know where to find me.
I have a social media question. So we had talked about the Black Lives Matter mural, me like going and gramming, and then it rained that day, and then I kind of fell off the train. But I have like one more photo that I shared already at the new Switchyard thing, but also the Black Lives Matter ended up getting like Sean, didn't you say? I thought the date that you gave me was like super far in advance. Did you end up doing it the makeup day sooner than expected?
Yeah, so there was a miscommunication. Originally, the artist's schedule had said that the original rain date wasn't going to work, and there was a Banneker Advisory Council meeting, which it kickstarted back being on May 1st. So I'm sorry that I didn't get a chance to kind of communicate that out. I was on it, yeah, but Lindsay stopped by and I think took a few photos. I also have a ton of photos.
My wife was downtown and she took a few photos, so I have them. They're just, and I bet, there's a few action photos of the mural being painted, so I could email those or post them or something.
Yeah, that'd be great. Either you can email them to me if you want help with the text, but if you have an idea of what you want to post, then you can just log in.
Okay, I'll probably start to you.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to mention real quick too for social media, Helen and I did a pretty good, robust like Instagram campaign the last couple of weeks too. So feel free to pull from that. So Essence, just so you know, we did a post about the Aurora Almanac. So you could just share that from the bead page. So that's something to keep in mind too, is like some of the content might already be there, and just feel free to share. And what I don't think we failed to do is maybe tag you all in those, so that you can feel free to share. So I'll go back in and edit those so you have access, and then you can just share them. And that might be a way of I think Helen didn't want to post from you all. She, you know what I mean? Didn't want to steal y'all's thunder. So
She can absolutely steal our thunder. What do you mean?
I was gonna say she
yeah.
can be one more person with the password. And
Yeah. Well, in the fall, we'll make sure she's on summer break now. But
okay.
but yeah, so I'll try to go back, make sure you all are tagged in that. And once again, sorry for the miscommunication about the BLM thing. There's a lot of I'm sure some of you have heard, there's a lot of moving parts around that specifically, and I'm happy to answer any questions that people may have. But there was some discrepancy between some advisory council members and the artists themselves, and it has been since resolved, and we have a beautiful mural downtown. So
Cool.
All right. Next topic on the agenda, we are presenting to City Council on June 2nd. And so we need to decide a little bit of what it is that we want to cover during that meeting. And if, say, I'm presenting the whole thing, or ideally, since this is going to be through Zoom, I would love to have more participation from commissioners, and like I introduce it and then other people speak to other parts that are happening or have been happening. Our last presentation was 2 years ago. So while we don't have half an hour to give them an update, we have to keep it short. I think we have the opportunity to show different faces and provide several bits of information and updates for City Council. So I would love to hear from all of you if anybody wants to participate, and what exact areas do we want to cover. Like, we have a new strategic plan, we have a new master plan in the works, that kind of thing. What else do we want to talk about? The 1%.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Have folks had a chance to look at our previous presentation from 2019? Like, I'm curious if people want to sort of stick to that general format, or, I mean, obviously not everything in there is relevant. Like, we could strip out a couple of the panels that were more like project specific, like the community song and the Ivy Tech Arts Awards. But I do feel like the rest, you know, highlighting the grants program and the expansion of the grants program, you know, probably specifically speaking to the recovery application of the grants program, that feels really big and important, and sort of highlighting the collaboration with the BUEA. I think anytime the commission can demonstrate that it can successfully interact and coordinate with other city commissions and entities, you know, showing that we can play nice with others and we're not just on our own little island. I think that always plays well. And obviously we have a lot of, you know, 1% to highlight, which I think we should, but I like the general framework of that if we want to kind of try to mirror it, but I was on the commission at that point, so I'm kind of curious what other folks think.
Come on. There's no wrong answers here.
Yeah, I just as meaty as it can be. And if you need other people to talk about specific things, just kind of assign it and ask.
I can do that.
Yeah, I'm happy to public speak. The things that come to my mind are the public art and the interactions that I and my 3-year-old have had with it, just because they're like kind of some good imagery to show that kids really do like this stuff and people do like it. That's one suggestion.
Awesome.
I mean, just presenting the projects that have been completed, even though it's, you know, we've all been kind of a semi-hiatus in the past 2 years, because there are quite a few, specifically, you know, with all the public art projects that are very visible.
Yeah, and even if they're not completed, I mean, we can talk to the Stefan Rice sculpture and all of these things that have been, you know, moving parts during these last 2 years.
Yeah, there's a lot of good action.
So is this the June meeting that we have been?
Yes.
Okay. So it will actually not happen before we have settled on the spring grants recipients. It sounds like June the 2nd. So some type
we might be able to give some basic numbers, like we're granting 16 applications, or, you know, as far as this 1 year, and we can edit that until the very last minute.
I think that wherever we are with the emerging artists grants proposal, that would be a good thing to include as well. If I have a better idea of the mood of the room, like who's in the room, I will volunteer to assist Bryony.
Yay!
Please give me a rundown of what to expect and what to come with.
Yeah, no, I mean, we would have a deck that everybody would, and I can work on that deck and coordinate with Sean, and everybody would have access for it ahead of time. And since it's through Zoom, really, you can have notes. You can just review, you know, speak to your notes and your 2-3 slides, and that's it. So it's very, very simple. Sean, do you want to speak as to who's there, what the overall goal is?
Yeah, so normally, you know, this has been a request on and off over the years for the Bloomington Arts Commission. It's usually a pretty standard practice that a commission would report to City Council and just update. Obviously, I do a pretty good job of relaying information up to the mayor's office because I work directly. You know, that's a direct line of communication we have. City Council, not so much. You know, I do work with some City Council members, but it's a way to inform them overall on what we've been up to, right? And so I think Nick is right to highlight kind of the major highlights. I don't think we need to like dive super deep into the 1% because they have kind of their story's been told a lot, right? In the last couple weeks, and just with the press release and a variety of those things, and they've been a long time coming, frankly. And things like the Plan Commission, right? We've presented to the Plan Commission on the 4th Street garage and the Trades District garage. So really, I think it's about talking about the mission and vision of how you all. So the dynamic of the Art Commission has changed since 2019. So it's really about an opportunity to introduce yourselves as commissioners. I would be hesitant, even though, Bryony, yes, it is on Zoom. Council gets very particular about who's speaking and when they're speaking and all those kinds of things. And there's public record stuff that we have to be careful of. It would be great to have as many commissioners there, and we could do a thing where we say, please, you know, show us a reaction, raise your hand if you're a commissioner here, turn your camera on, that way everybody can see you. And then it goes, you know, maybe Bryony as chair, Nick as public art chair, and Essence as grants chair or something like that. Because I think it's only like 15 minutes. So it's not a long time. I'll firm that up, and we'll want to make sure that we didn't get a lot of questions last time I presented in 2019, and I was kind of surprised by that. So I just want to make sure we do leave room, that it's not just us presenting and then there's no questions. So I will try to maybe ask, and you know, maybe we can provide the slides beforehand and stuff like that. But I was hoping for more of an open discussion with City Council because it's a public meeting.
And the questions come only from City Council?
Yes.
Or
yes.
Anybody on the call?
No, it's usually City Council. I think people can maybe make public comment, but that would be after. So we're kind of early on in the agenda. And the reason why I didn't align this year is obviously there's a lot of things happening at the city. Right now, city council's pretty locked in with this UDO update. And I'm sure some of you have been following the conversations around duplexes and triplexes and what's allowed and what's not allowed. And then also too, just last week we announced annexation pursuits again. So there's just a lot of timing with that is, it unfortunately didn't align with our schedule this year, but that's not a problem. I think we can make it work. And like Bryony said, I think we can allude essence to saying, we received an overwhelming support. We're so thankful for the 100,000. We're very excited. We're going to be announcing next Wednesday at 7 p.m., $45,000 in arts grants for the spring cycle. And we're very excited because in the fall, we're going to do the emerging arts grants. And that's the first time because you all supported us, right? So it's kind of supposed to be a love fest a little bit, but it's also a way to really celebrate y'all's story as a commission. And that's the headspace I would enter. Highlight the big picture stuff, strategic plan is important, but it's a document that they can read later. So it's really a way for you all to tell the story directly to them. And I'm rambling now, so I'll shut up.
Well, I think it's worth mentioning, to the point earlier about us not getting a lot of questions last time, is there's been turnover in our commission, but there's also been significant turnover on council. And so, maybe everyone's just happy with what we have to say and that's it. And we don't get a lot, but it's also possible we do get more questions this time around.
I would just add that what I've seen of this group in terms over is that they're kind of pragmatic maybe, and that with the public art, if you have, say, this is it before, these were the plans and this is what we've achieved. So you're doing it before, during, and after. So you've got something tangible that this is where the money's gone. So, I'm sure that Sean's been doing this all along, but that usually they're more interested in seeing and following our money than paper.
So
Yeah,
Sean, I'll go ahead.
So that reminds me of how I think there was kind of a spat or whatever earlier with that like arts weren't important and we should be funding like environmental concerns or something like that. One like with Isabel Piedmont Smith, there was something that she was kind of, it got dicey or icy, and so maybe do we want to play to that somehow? I'm not sure how, but just
I don't think that tension's there anymore. I think the arts community really showed up, and I think it was a misspoken term to put it in an either or framework. So I don't think it's really about that. And we do have a lot of new city councilors. A lot of them are very proactive in the arts. Council member Sandberg has been a through and through arts advocate since she joined the council, right? Sims is also a very strong arts ally. Flaherty is one as well. Sue Scambolari. They all are in their own kind of way. So I don't think we're up against any adversarial council, members. And Babette, you're totally right. How we can talk about the leverage of whatever support they give us, and how that ripples out in the community is super important. And I think I'll be able to have some more of those numbers, especially with like some of the recovery forward efforts and where we've been with the grant program and how much money has gone out the door. I don't think council knows these things, and there's a lot of things being thrown at them like ARPA requests and all this stuff, and it can get lost in the noise a little bit. And so I think it will be good to double down on that. So I'll just make sure that we do have some like economic impact numbers that we attach to, not just the like the celebratory like narrative of like commissioning a young artist that then moves us to a bigger city and then is super successful, right? Like we need to tell that story alongside being like, our grants support X amount of dollars in private support. And I'll try to crunch the numbers so that we have that. So all very good insights to everyone.
And also what Sam is talking about is having the pictures and if you can do a small section I always think that people respond to anything that's visual. So, just from his little daughter, being enamored of something to the, all the art, the posters that are around town and the murals, etc., that are all new in the past 2 years, I think would be fabulous.
Do we have many photos? I have ones of me and my kid, but are there other people that we would have anywhere?
I don't know. Your child is so adorable, so I'm a big supporter.
Well, thanks, but as a diversity sort of lens.
Yeah, we do have photos. I mean, think about it. The Nina Chanel piece, there's documentation of that. That dedication happened right before COVID. And I will say, thankfully, we do have a leading graphic design think tank as our chair. So I'm excited to see what magic can be done with our PowerPoint format to make.
Can I use Keynote instead of PowerPoint?
Yes, you can. Goodness. Yes, absolutely. You can use whatever you need to make an exciting design format.
Sounds good. I can do that. So this is what I'll do. I'll start drafting an updated presentation, Sean, and bounce it back and forth with you. Hopefully we can get in some numbers and things like that. And then I'll share that with the rest of the commission. So be attentive to your email, because we will not have a meeting before this goes to City Council. So I will need your feedback, your observations, and I will add a script to the slides so that it's not just the slides with the bullet points, but also what is actually going to be said. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And not to make more, oh, go ahead, Essence, sorry.
I just say I appreciate a script. That sounds helpful too. Thank you.
And then you can feel free to edit, the grant section to really be your voice, but maybe I'll just do some bullet points, just some guidance as to what to say.
And I would say that use this meeting folder that I shared with everybody. So Sam, if you have photos, that way we don't have to create another folder and get lost in the mix. So if anybody has any photos or anything that they want to have in the presentation, just dump it into this shared folder drive, and we'll pull from there in the presentation.
And not only that you want them in the presentation, but if you think that we could potentially use them, then dump them in there. If we don't, that's fine, but having more imagery will be helpful.
Yeah, one thing I might do, Bryony, is look back, like with the Nina Chanel thing, and then also like when we, ahead of the trades commission, when we did some stuff at like the farmers market, I might dig around and see if I can find some like photos and even like social photos that we could possibly get individual permissions to use.
That'd be great.
There's got to be some stuff in like my IG DMs with Sean or something that we can find. But I think that like, while we shouldn't be defensive about, or feel like I need to respond to Facebook comments we've gotten over the time or whatever else, I do think there's some opportunities to like subtly frame some of these things, and not exclusively from our voice, but to show community reaction and community interaction. That for all the noisy folks who don't like some of the things that are out there, there are also some people who are maybe noisy, but not as noisy, who also really like them too. And that's worth showing.
So Nick, as you find those images, if you want to send any bullet points or anything, that would be helpful so that I can capture what you're thinking properly.
Cool. Do you want to give a deadline for that feedback?
ASAP, if you could, let me look at the calendar here real quick. Today's the 12th. We have, the presentation is in 3 weeks. So the sooner the better. Anything else to add in terms of the presentation? All right. Sean, will you give us an update on the Waldron?
There we go, I'm mute. Yeah, so I shared with you all the task force report. I think you all got the press release last week. So this has been the timing that we've been waiting for. That triggers a lot of I guess, concern in the community about the future of the Waldron. So did everybody have a chance to at least glance and look at it and see at least the recommendations, or the various recommendations, but ultimately the main recommendation from the Waldron Task Force? I'm seeing some head nodding, but not a ton, so, which is fine. So let me get down to it. So Bryony, you were also on the task force as the arts, identified as the Arts Commission representative. And, you know, since December, this group has been meeting very regularly. It's a very thorough, Babette, I think you mentioned at one meeting when it was announced who was on it. It was a kind of a powerhouse, like an all-star team of invested people, not just real estate folks, but arts folks, a variety of those things. So they presented a variety of different scenarios for the future of the Waldron. As you all know, the Waldron has transferred hands multiple times. The city is very concerned about the longevity and the future of it. And then ultimately the task force recommendation is to continue to leverage the fullest support for the performing and the visual artists in the community by extending the short-term use of the building from somewhere between 1 to 3 to up to 5 years. So that arts groups can continue to use the space as is. I think I need to do some more research. I think this is actually a capital improvement board, not a corporation. So there's a little bit of confusion around this right now in the community, especially for like the Buskirk-Chumley Theater and a variety of those things. So a capital improvement board has actually been floated around for the convention center. So it's just a kind of a third party extension of the cities, where the city will no longer be as directly involved in the oversight of management. And it's a stronger committee where the expertise lies within the committee itself in management of facilities, which is actually better. Better in the long run for the city as we grow, as we think about the index of spaces that we do own, like the Buskirk-Chumley, potentially the Waldron, but also other facilities like the convention center, Switchyard Park, and those facilities. You know, we own the project school, so it's just a way of looking at our inventory, and it can actually also be for like market retail spaces, like we will have with the parking garages. And then also double down on the emphasis of considering a ground up from scratch built art center. I want to throw a couple things out there that a lot of people kind of get fixated on, which is the hospital and convention. Those are two very reasonable sites. I also don't think it's out of question to think about an expansion of the Buskirk-Chumley, frankly, and the back parking lot that is city owned, right? So it doesn't have to necessarily be these new facilities, or I guess these new development sites. There is market in our downtown to imagine new spaces too. I think sometimes we get limited by what we know, and what we know is the Waldron. So this is the recommendation. The city is currently assessing this report as I speak to you all. We're doing our due diligence. We also received an unsolicited proposal from the Cardinal Stage Group that's floating a potential merger, and they've been involved and actively engaged. And their original proposal is also on the city website, which is worth looking at as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I think it would be good to kind of just get into a discussion as a commission and hear your all's thoughts. I've been meeting with as many different folks to get their insights and feedback on the recommendations, so that the city's well informed and we can start to publicly engage some of the concerns in the community. So where to start?
I just want to add that the task force conducted 8 focus groups with different points of view, the arts, business, real estate, things like that, and got a lot of input from the community that way. And then the proposal that was submitted is actually a merger between Cardinal, BPP, and BAFT. So the three organizations would come together as a single group and manage the Waldron. So that's just a little bit more detail on that proposal.
And we also included, these are kind of critical infrastructure. And I just want to highlight that this humidification and ventilation has actually been moved up to like a high priority just because of COVID concerns. So I just want to point that out from a city staff point of view as we've reviewed this and as we've gone into this process with the task force. Yeah.
So my guess is that you haven't had a chance to really look at this and can't quite voice an opinion, but Sean, you're seeking for BAC feedback on this specifically.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I think it would be helpful to, it doesn't need to be an official vote tonight by any means, but I think just being actively involved in this conversation as we pursue the recommendations and look through them. I think I just want to be clear too that there is an Arts Forward campaign going on right now that's a little bit, I think, a mischaracterization of what's been happening, frankly. And that's a little bit egg on the city face in terms of communication. I think it's not, we are living obviously in unprecedented times, and the transfer of the Waldron happened at an unbelievably unprecedented time. And we have to be very good stewards of the public process. So we at the city had to let the Waldron Task Force run its course before we could include or make budget requests or anything like that. I also want to point out that there have been specific ARPA requests that are arts related, but we see them as economic development, which is awesome that the city sees it that way, right? We don't see it as an amenity. We see it as core infrastructure to the city in a variety of ways. So I think there was a miscommunication from city council at the meeting where, just so you all know how ARPA is working, we are still getting guidance on what those funds can be used. So we don't know what we don't know, right? So I think it's been a little bit complicated. And so I support the arts community being able to rally and think through advocacy in a variety of different ways. I just frankly wish Arts Forward Bloomington would have reached out and had a meeting with us first before launching a campaign like that, but lesson learned on all sides. So we're working through the ARPA requests and specifically the future of investments in the arts across the board. So that's just something I wanted to point out. I'm sure some of you got that email, and Bryony, I know you're heavily involved on the steering committee and weren't at the meeting when they discussed the campaign. So, and there's a rally, I believe, on the 22nd that we should all probably be attending because it's a great opportunity for us to think about supporting the arts. But I'm also happy to answer any questions around those kind of frameworks too.
So basically, for a 1 to 5 year usage, it'll take about $500,000 to get this to work, and it will be operated by the 3 theater groups. Is that the bottom line?
No, not close. You're close. So it's a little confusing. The task force is making. Yeah. So the task force has made the recommendation that the city own the building and seek either third-party management. That could be through an open process, right? And it probably will have to go that way anyways, because it's a public building, so we'll probably have to go out to bid. Cardinal could be that. It also could be the BCT, right? They're right around the corner. They manage one of our other buildings. But to maintain city ownership and investment in it for up to 5 years, while also simultaneously researching and investing the potential for a new art center, either in the downtown or somewhere in the community. So that's their ultimate recommendation.
Yeah, acknowledging
Okay.
that the Waldron is the need for the Waldron exists right now, but it is not the best long-term solution for the needs of the community. So that's where the new venue would come in. It's just, but acknowledging that we can't just jump into a new venue tomorrow without the proper studies and finding the funding and all of that. So in the meantime, an investment needs to be made and taken care of so that the Waldron can continue to serve those theater groups and performance groups in the best capacity possible.
And as of right
And
now,
then
in terms of the $500,000 is the deferred maintenance that needs to be done for the building to essentially open, right? So that's ventilation. There's some code violations too, like getting a fire stair repaired, stuff like that. So it's going to be about $500,000 in deferred maintenance that needs to be done.
And I think part of the frustration that comes from Arts for Bloomington and some of members of the community is the fact that the theater is closed and nothing is happening. Nobody's doing all of the things that need to be done to it, right? While we can't have those events, so that the moment they say you can host a production, open the doors. We're not going to have that matching timeline. And so part of the frustration comes from this feeling of it's there, why aren't you doing something about it? Which, you know, I understand it's very frustrating for all of the performance groups right now to not know, one, if they're going to be hosting any live productions or not, but if they can, the where, right?
So therefore, the city is going to have to take this and take the advice, so to speak, into consideration, and then the city will vote to either to go ahead with it or not, and to get.
That is if they choose to follow our recommendation of the task force.
They being the council, they being the city council.
They can, on their own, decide that any of the other scenarios are better for their own reasons. So the task force did provide various scenarios, kind of going from, you know, keep everything as it is to sell the building and, you know, start over kind of, and everything in between. So now the city has to decide, actually, your recommendation is the right one, or taking other factors into account, other information from other commissions, other people, we're going to choose something different. And that's the state where they're at right now, also with legal, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people involved in the final decision.
Yeah, this was it. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, is anybody making any statements about when they, if they have the venue or whatever, when they would consider doing any indoor activities, or just, do you have
That's
any
a great
clue,
question. Yeah, so just so you know, Broadway in New York announced last week that September 14th, they're opening 100% capacity. We are about a month behind a city like New York in terms of COVID restrictions and variants and all that kind of stuff. That's probably a little quick of a timeline for our local community. As I've been asking people for their feedback, I'm also asking key users what their hybrid season looks like. So we are gathering that information about when the actual users would need the space. I don't think it's going to be September 14th. I also don't know if our health department will allow gatherings of that size. Also, there's concern, right? The Rose Fire Bay is 90 people, 90 max. And the auditorium, I think you can get away with like 275, maybe 300, but it's pretty limited. At 50%, you're going to lose money on whatever performance is in there. So we still do have a little bit of a runway in terms of some of those investments. There is some concern, right? Like I mentioned earlier, you know, getting quotes, getting bids, depending on the direction that we go, where construction and material costs are, right? We recently bid out a fence that was 4 times the cost that it would normally be for the parking garages, right? So there's also some concerns there about, you know, being good stewards of the taxpayer dollar as the market kind of levels off. So we're investigating that, right? So I think it's important to keep in mind that there is an ultimate that the task force is an independent body separate of the city, but is to inform the city on the best direction forward. And that we should look at all the recommendations. I think it's also important to note, kind of in response to the Arts Forward items, but also you all know this too, and I think I mentioned this, you know, like Monday night essence. We have a really good, strong arts ally, which is i.e. the mayor, right? The mayor is a very supportive person for the arts, has continued to increase the arts support with our grant program year over year, has devoted a lot of projects to the 1%, and actually has increased the 1%, right? For things like the 4th Street Garage, Switchyard Park, and even the Trades District. So we have a really, really great ally, right? In our decision making, which we have a strong mayor system. So I really don't think there's not an alarm bell ringing. That I think there's some misconception in the community that we're going to sell this building for apartments, even though that was one of 7 million different recommendations in this report. But the ultimate recommendation is to continue to provide the Waldron as an arts resource until we can get something better. That's essentially the recommendation. Like I said,
Sean,
I don't have an answer. Yeah, go ahead.
I think you need to identify the recommendation out of the scenarios.
Yeah.
We identified scenarios and then made a recommendation based on that.
It was good. It's good. This has nothing to do with anything, but has the university made any decisions about when they're going to go live? Have you?
That's a good
anything?
question. They've been doing some hybrid events, and I know that like the Arts and Humanities Council has opened Maxwell Hall, not House. I always goof that up, the coffee company, but it's Maxwell Hall. They've been doing some events and shows and are planning to do that. But I would say that probably more in the fall, with the student body coming back, will probably trigger some of that. I know a lot of universities are still holding back on like how many vaccinations happen. And I think honestly too, a lot of people are holding their breath about the new president and what that means for the university and the role that the arts and culture plays. So that's kind of still to be determined, frankly.
I will say, talking a little bit with Ed Cromentali in his role in arts and humanities on campus, I think there are a lot of people operating with the mindset that things are going to be wide open start of the fall semester on campus. And I'll say that to whatever extent this matters, at least the touring music industry, there is the wide assumption that like club touring and like arena and auditorium touring is going to be wide open in September. That could go backwards, but that is sort of we're seeing a lot of tours and stuff like that announced. And so, you know, the city and county will do what it does and has every right to do. But I think that if there's not a significant backslide in a lot of places, I think the pressure, like quite frankly, the commercial pressure is going to be on for a lot of cities and states to sort of follow this lead, so that, you know, touring activities, things like that, and, you know, sort of the race to return to like local tourism commerce, you know, people don't fall behind there. But I understand why like local arts organizations might follow behind, but I think it's coming for September unless there's a big shift.
Okay, I'm noticing the time. I want to just make sure that we give Sean the feedback that he needs at this point in regards to the Waldron before we go to the final items on the agenda. Does anybody have a specific opinion or thought regarding the Waldron or the recommendation from the task force? Okay, Sean, we don't give you much today.
Well, yeah, that the city
Totally
should
fine.
take some of the millions that we got from the federal government and use it on the Waldron.
We're working on that, Babette, of course, right? No, this is very helpful. I mean,
That's my personal recommendation, whatever.
yeah, I think it would be helpful that if you all just, as active members in the community, you know, the city is taking the best interests in the arts, right? We always do. Like I said, the mayor is a very supportive mayor and is following, you know, through and through on a lot of things. You know, if you hear of any rumors or any kind of I think there's just so much information out there that it's always hard to follow, and we have not been the best communicators about this process, right? And what the task force expectations were, and I think a lot of people were holding their breath that the task force is going to come back and say sell the building, because it's the second time it's come back to the city, right? So just urge people to be patient, right? We're doing our due diligence, and we will, you know, in the coming weeks, be very open and public and transparent about our process and what our intentions are. We're assessing this just as quickly as the community is in a lot of ways, but we are trying to take the best interest of the arts, and we believe in the arts, and we're trying to do our due diligence. So that would be helpful. Just if you hear of anything, or if you meet with folks and you're hearing rumblings, that would just be super helpful on the city side of things.
And I would encourage everybody. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, just quickly that, well, I think a lot of this is about supporting the arts. I think that in reality, what the arts support is the revitalization of downtown. And at this point, it's critical to Bloomington that everything is done to be as visual and real in terms of revitalizing downtown. Whether it's the restaurants, whether it's just the people being out. So I think that every dollar that's spent on the Waldron will in fact come back in terms of business, downtown businesses, etc. I truly believe that maybe that's something in the presentation also, that the minute the artist put up on the walls on the 4th Street garage, I think that also will add an enormous positive factor. And right now, I think Bloomington, as all towns like this, need everything that they could possibly get their hands on that is visually proactive and revitalizing. So that's it.
Great point.
And the last thing I was going to say is I encourage you all to look at the proposal from Cardinal BPP in Baft, and just send Sean an email saying, this looks awesome, this is not, this is whatever it is, whatever reaction you have from that proposal. I think that's one aspect that the city still needs to hear more about, what the community thinks of that option. All right, let's move on to commissioner announcements. Do we have any? No commissioner announcements. Well, I will provide one on behalf of somebody else. You might have noticed that Quentin has not been joining us for the last couple meetings, and that's because he got a job with the public system in Atlanta and moved. But he was hoping to join a couple more meetings and share this news with you, but I guess he hasn't been able to. I think moving caught up with him and starting a new job and all of those things. So congratulations to Quentin from afar, and at some point we'll send him a note. Sean, do you have anything to add on that?
He got an amazing job being a diversity, equity, and inclusion analyst for the public school system. So we are very excited because he has such a long and promising career. But we will keep him posted, obviously, on the emerging arts grant, since that was partially his brainchild. So we'll make sure that he's kept in the loop on that. But we are very sorry to lose 2 back-to-back amazing commissioners that have brought so much to the table. So please encourage people to apply through the onboard portal. It's an open process, right? I believe that Quentin is a city council appointee and Rachel was a mayor appointee, so they have their own process and due diligence. I don't really have anything to do with it, but make sure that people apply. And because of that, we will need a new secretary, which the responsibility is making minutes. That's why we've had some issues. The good news is you don't have to, we've been recording meetings, so it's easier. You can participate and just type up notes. The minutes don't need to be, like I said, I think there's a looming legacy that it used to be because we had a particular commissioner that was a creative writer and was amazing. And if you look back to the 2016, 2017 minutes, they're pretty amazing, but they're 10 or 12 pages long and they don't need to be that. So I just want to forewarn, if anybody wants to step up to be secretary, it's a really great role. And the requirement is just helping us take minutes. And it's not too time consuming. So just wanted to put that out there. We don't have to vote today, but maybe one of the new oncoming commissioners can do that, but I just wanted to plant that seed. So
you mentioned it last time, Brian, and I've thought about it, and I was practicing this meeting. I have a little trouble with attention span, but if we have the recording, you can throw me in the ring as a potential candidate for secretary.
Great. I appreciate that, Sam. And, it's the kind of thing that the more you do it, the easier it will be for you to.
That's what I figured. I thought Essence might be doing the same thing because you asked like Liz Mitchell's name. You asked like 2 questions, and that was like really helpful for me. I was like, oh yeah, their last name, yeah.
Those are from my own notes in my notebook. I support you as secretary.
So Sam, why don't we do this? Take notes in the next meeting and see how you feel. Do a test run.
Yeah, I mean, I did a test run this time, and knowing that there's a recording of it will make it a lot easier.
And Sam, I can point you to a couple other like public commissions just so you have an idea. Like I said, I think Wilkerson's Rest in Power legacy is still overseeing the commission in a lot of ways, which we love, but it really doesn't need to be anything super thorough in the sense of, because we do have recordings, it's just verbatim. We discussed the 1% projects, these specific projects. These were the updates, right? So it doesn't have to be anything novelistic, I should say.
Yeah. There's no. And then Sean mentioned that.
Yeah. I was an English major, so at least I can like write some words.
There also used to be a time where certain commissioners I won't name really liked to like pick at every little word in the minutes. As if it was like a court transcription. And we don't do that anymore. We just worry about communicating the ideas that we discussed. And so I think that makes it a little easier too.
I think when you go from a narrative to bullet points, you eliminate a lot of those nuances. All right. So with that.
One question.
Yeah.
Sean, can you just send just a paragraph or something about looking for commissioners and where to find the applications or what it would involve?
Yeah, I'll send it. I'll send an email out to the group with a link. Yeah, I'll do that.
Right, and then we can send it out. Good, thank you.
All right, I want to give Chaz a chance to say hello.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all.
Do you have any
I don't have much
updates?
Yeah, I do actually. And More Kids Workshops. We have a Pictura Kids workshop coming up. So if you know any kids 7 and up who want to join a free workshop on May 22nd, please let them know. Go to our website and look on our calendar. So yeah, we're really excited. We're kind of getting back to more normal programming that is safe though. So we have like a COVID safety statement too. So anyway, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Does anybody have anything else to add? Anything they want to share? Any last questions? Okay, well, this meeting is adjourned. I'll see you all next month.